Hello, I'm Erin. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as a transgender woman. I am pansexual, and I'm a lead research assistant here at Sacramento State University. Yeah, so for me growing up, I was the only out person for a majority of my high school experience. When I was in high school, being able to identify as transgender wasn't as accepted as it is now, and I didn't have the language to say that I was transgender or non-binary or to use they, them, or she, her pronouns. All that I really knew of at that time was just being gay. And I eventually came to a queer space, where I learned about they, them pronouns, and I learned about being non-binary. That was in 2015. And I saw that it fit for me then. And when I also learned that it was underneath the transgender umbrella, I was like, oh, this is great. So it was kind of like a baby step into eventually saying that I was transgender. I think it's really interesting whenever we speak about intersectionality because yes, I think for myself, I'm often the only Black trans person in the room. Whether it's in certain queer spaces, whether it's in academic spaces, it could be like really intimidating for some people. But to me, I see it as I'm able to enrich the experience of everybody else that's around me because now they get to experience what a Black trans person sounds like how they think. I try to make learning experiences, honestly, in my day-to-day conversations. Anybody who's curious about the transgender experience, whether they have like a cousin or a friend that's like recently come out, like they're struggling to understand, I kind of let them practice like with me in terms of trying to widen like their understandings.
On Stockton Boulevard in South Sacramento, a once-forgotten space getting new life.
This building was abandoned for 12 years.
With a new coat of paint and a whole lot of elbow grease, this fixer-upper now a space for the community to break bread.
We kind of wanted this space to be something that the community can share. Meet each other, hang out.
Hang out with a freshly baked bagel or empanada in hand at Forgotten Bakery.
Order 45?
It's owned by Robbie Naeem and Paul Dollar, the business partners, also partners in life. They met in Miami and have been together for 5 years, moving to the Colonial Heights area a few years ago and opening up shop in March.
My partner actually came up with the name. It has to do with the location.
Paul tells us the small building used to be a bar called the Sea Shanty until it was left vacant for more than a decade. The area of Stockton Boulevard has also seen better days, but not just the location. Paul and Robbie also dusting off old family recipes for their baked goods.
If we don't learn these recipes, these too will also be forgotten. So we're happy to bring them to the community.
Fittingly, on the corner of Baker Avenue, Forgotten Bakery brings together two childhood memories from Paul and Robbie. Robbie's father and mother were bagel makers who owned a bakery in the Bay Area for 20 years. He grew up behind the counter.
5 years old, they used to, take me to the bakery and I'd start making bagels and playing with dough. And my partner, Paul, comes from a Chilean background, and he's been making empanadas his whole life. So we kind of merged the two together and decided to, create something fun.
Every day I think about my mother when I make my food. Empanadas are a labor of love. It's kind of like tamales. It's an all-day event. Everybody helps make them for holidays. When we make empanadas, you're family.
The empanadas are hand-folded and offered in a variety of savory and sweet flavors. Paul's favorite, the Chilean, a beef empanada filled with onions, olives, raisins, and hard-boiled egg.
They're always hot with lots of filling.
And Robbie's signature, the Forgotten Bagel, with chive cream cheese, bacon, and jalapeno. What makes these bagels so special?
This is the beer fermented dough.
The dough is fermented overnight, hand-rolled and boiled in honey water, baked fresh each morning. And their baked goods are getting the attention of locals and visitors coming out to support the new shop.
When we saw the crowds of people coming from around here, coming back every day, it was really special for us.
A once-forgotten space, now known.
Have a great day.
In South Sacramento, Alicia Machado, ABC 10.
Half a day, everyone. My name is Pangelina. I also go by Panji. I use he and they pronouns. I identify as a queer man of color of mixed indigenous heritage. I'm Chamorro. I am the Associate Director for the Strategic Asian and Pacific Islander Retention Initiative at UC Davis, and I'm also a member of Halau Kahalu Lalivai here in Sacramento. I'm a hula dancer. I grew up in a house full of boys, raised by my father. I had a very high voice, I had a very bad lisp, and my mannerisms were very effeminate, so that really opened up the door for people to target me and assume that I was gay, and that came with a lot of hurtful slurs at a young age where I really didn't know what any of those meant, what it meant to be attracted to the same sex, same gender. That made me really want to bottle a lot of who I was up inside. I didn't come out until I was 22 when I was at UC Berkeley for undergrad, and I really got to connect with people in the queer and trans community, and they allowed me to discover who I was. We live in a society that tells men we're not supposed to feel and express things, and that is the same for whether you're straight or queer. Creating an inclusive space where people feel seen, they feel safe and vulnerable enough to just be who they are without judgment is something that I try to do for every student that I meet with. When it comes to gender expression, I would say 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, if people see me walking down the street, they default to think that I'm straight. Based off of how I look, how my face is groomed, what I'm wearing. That's a part of passing privilege, essentially, because there are some people in my community who don't pass and they are targets, and so that's something that I'm aware of. Sit and listen to your friends, relatives who are queer and trans, and genuinely take an interest in their stories, because pride isn't always fun. It started as a riot, as a protest, because we had to fight for, and we're still fighting for our rights to be equal, seen as equals, to be seen as humans. And so take the opportunity to really hear that human experience of those in your life.
Hi, my name is Emily Oton. I use she or a pronouns, and I am the owner of A Seat at the Table Books. I identify as queer both in terms of gender and sexuality. I prefer to use am pronouns, mostly because I don't really relate to a lot of pronouns. I prefer to just be identified as who I am. But I found the pronouns am through a business called Crafty Queer Studio that makes pronoun buttons. I like AM because M is short for Emily, so it's kind of a compromise between me and the world of pronouns. I am proudly Alaska grown. I spent the first 32 years of my life there. I grew up in a very supportive and loving home, but one that was conservative in terms of both religion and politics. Growing up, one of my only windows into lives different from my own were books. And books let me see the lives of other people and see just how human they were. And they gave me a very non-judgmental, safe window into what it's like to be in a different life. I love Pride Month because it's a chance to lean into the joy of being queer and being on the LGBTQ+ spectrum.
Les Tattoos is Ladies Empowered Sacramento, and we are the largest woman-led and LGBTQIA tattoo shops here in Sacramento. This stencil is going to stick to the client. I was born and raised here in Sacramento, California, and I am a local queer female tattoo artist and creative. Les Tattoos, Ladies Empowered Sacramento, was created back in 2019. One of the most important reasons for even wanting to create this shop was there was a lack there of representation. It was more of like a need that, hey, we're noticing that we are the only women that are working in the shop. We are the only ones that are making a diverse community feel more comfortable than a normal shop would at that time. We're just gonna peel this off. And then I'm gonna kind of navigate where I'm gonna be in your space.
I am Alexis Coffee. I'm from Chico. Today I am getting a flash piece by Mari here. Someone that's openly trans and queer. It can be a little intimidating to go into just your everyday shop. It can be a little rough in the industry, finding a tattoo artist that's open-minded and accepting, and not just tolerant. And here it's celebrated, and it's so pleasant and just comforting. Walking in the door and immediately seeing, you know, rainbows, seeing pride, and just all that just helps me feel like at home and comfortable here.
We definitely are more about the client. We really focus on the experience and really actually listening to our clients as far as what they're comfortable with, what they want. I love seeing more women in the industry. I love seeing more queer women, especially Latinas, you know, like there's so many talented women and there's just plenty of room for all of us, honestly. Yeah.
What made a place important and special was the energy that you brought in every single day.
I don't think I could work anywhere else. It's been a very healing experience for me.
Getting tattooed is a very intimate thing, and I want every person who walks through, that's a client or just a friend, to know that, hey, when you come in here, you're gonna get walked through the whole process, but also I want people to know when they come in that they're gonna laugh. We're gonna have beautiful stories to share, and you're gonna leave this place thinking like, wow, like I wish more places were like this.
My name is Isaac. I go by he, him as a boy, and as Tilly, I go by she, her, and I'm gender fluid. I am pansexual, and I am your reigning Miss Gay Sacramento 2024. I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist as Isaac. My religious background was very rooted into my life. Every week, I was never actually able to be who I was because in my religion it is in some areas frowned upon to be who I am. And I finally come to the realization that being who I am, God's gonna accept me for no matter what. And for me to show myself in the community as a Christian is through love and acceptance and praise to everybody and however they present themselves. I've always been a creative and entertaining child growing up, so knowing that I can express myself through my drag and actually being whoever I wanted to be was like a light bulb in my mind to be like, okay, let's do this. Tilly just has nothing holding her back. She's literally just this person that is really out there, outgoing, wanting to talk to everybody. Being Miss Gay Sacramento was kind of like that pedestal for me to be like, okay, now I'm gonna be a voice for people that feel like they can't be heard. And Isaac, in a sense, was always that person that always wanted to be heard. I always have messages in my performances also that are uplifting, or for pride events, I always like to make it so that people feel like they can see themselves in me during that performance.
My name is Zahir Sabo. I am a queer Palestinian DJ, producer, and community organizer who works in HIV prevention, and my gender and sexuality is queer. Being queer in Palestine growing up was something that definitely I could not speak about. I'm still living in a homophobic society, but we also are living in a homophobic society. There's a really deep hypocrisy to how being queer and Palestinian is viewed as a contradiction to a lot of people, especially in the avenue of Palestinian rights. When people say, oh, well, you're queer and Palestinian, how do you negotiate those things, or how do you navigate them? And I'm like, I navigate them because everyone deserves humanity. I wasn't worried about homophobia growing up in Palestine because I was more concerned about surviving the 2 military checkpoints I had to cross to get just to school. We were always afraid of the possibility of us dying in the occupation because of the occupation than we ever were than we were afraid of our families. I am Palestinian and I am American. I am queer and I'm Palestinian. And there are so many spaces where I don't get to be those things together because the people in that space may not necessarily identify with one of my identities that I'm constantly am. Music and celebration is a really important part of Palestinian community and society. What I'm trying to communicate with my music is you don't have to choose. You can be both at the same time, unapologetically.